Now, after completing the switch statements or all the conditional statements, we are going to move forward with the loops. We are going to look forward to the loops. So loops in C#. So before the break, I will be going through the basics of loops, and I will teach you what are loops and types of loops that we do have. Okay. What are loops? The concept of loops in every programming language is always the same, right? Yeah. Only the way is different. How we can make use of them in every programming language, it's different. So loops are used to concurrently or just give us any particular number or any particular process, you know, in a looping structure. If you wanted to print the numbers from 1 to 1000, we can use loops. We do not have to use console.writeLine 1, 2, 3. It will take us around 2 days if we start printing 1, 2 up to 1000. So to save the time and to make this happen in a very short time, we can use loops, okay? So we can use loops to generate or to iterate a part of the program several times. So there are a lot of features and functions of loops, and the types of loops are, so there are types of loops in C#. First one is for loop. Second one
while
is
loop.
while loop, same thing.
Do while.
And do while. These are the three different looping structures of C# or of any programming language. Okay, now let's talk about for loop. What for loop is. So let's move it down. Wait a sec. Yeah. So in the programming language, it's often desired that we execute certain block of statements for a specified number of times, or you can say for multiple times we wanted to execute a particular statement. So a possible solution will be to type those statements for the, you know, required number of times. That means it will take, as I've told you, it will take a lot of time. However, the number of repetition may not be known in advance, so during compilation time, so it may be large enough, let's say 1000, 2000, or 3000. And how we can tackle with this problem is we can have the best solution to such problem is, or we can have the best solution for this problem, which is a loop. And loops are used in programming to repeatedly execute a certain block of statements until some condition is met, because we are setting the condition from this point of start, and you have to stop at this point of time. From if you want to execute block of statements in looping, a loop like for loop, so we have to give a starting point and we have to give a stopping point. Okay, now C for loop, or we are using a keyword for in for loop to create for loops in C. Okay, so simply we can say the for loop is used to iterate a part of the program multiple times. If the number of iteration is fixed, it's recommended, oh my gosh, recommended to use for loop. So this is the basic difference. If the number of iterations are fixed, like you have to, type in, or you have to iterate a part of your program 2 times, 3 times, 400 times, at that time, it's recommended to use for loop. When anything is fixed, then while loop. You need to, if there is a fixed iteration, it's recommended that programmers or those software developers recommended that you should always use for loop than while or do while loops. Now the syntax. The syntax is almost the same as we can initialize it in C or C++. Okay, so what's the syntax? It's for, then initialization, then a semicolon, condition, all right, or you can say criteria, and then whether you want to increment or you want decrement. Okay, that's increment, that's the syntax. So initialization, that's the starting point. Okay, what is the stopping point, and how many values or how much you want it to be incremented by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Every iteration, on every iteration, how many numbers or how many times you want to be iterated. That's the increment or decrement. Okay. Now a very simple example before we go for a break, and then we'll move with the multiple examples after the break. Okay. So for example, now if you have to go through the for loop, so we will go and create a new project now. Console app.NET Core next, and I'm going to name it as loops in C#. Okay, so here we go. We have the project here. And now a very simple example for loop where we're going to iterate some numbers from 1 to 50 or from 1 to 100 for loop. And then after the break, we are going to have some more complex ones. So we'll use for, all right, so this is semicolon and this is semicolon. This is the syntax. First of all, we should clear the syntax. And that's it. That's the syntax of our for loop. So in the first part, we have initialization. We can say integer a is equal to starting point, for example, 1, then semicolon. And what's the condition? At what point of time you want to stop? What's the number where you want to stop? What's the fixed point of time? So if a is less than or equal to 50, that's the condition, and you have to increment it. That means a plus plus. All right, and then here I am going to use, you need to display. That was just, it's going to store them, but you have to display them also with right line a semicolon. That's it. This is a very simple example where I have initialized a variable a, and it's going to initialize, or it's going to initialize from number 1. That's the initialization value. A is less than 50. That means it's the stopping value where it's going to stop. If you're going to make it as less than 50, it will just print up to 49. Because I have made it less than or equal to 50, it should print 1 to 50. Let's see, save it and run it. You can have the numbers here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and at last it's 50 because the condition is a should be either less or equal to 50. So it will print the numbers from 1 to 50. Got it? So that's a very simple example of for loop, correct? So how the for loop works? Yes, a question to you, Carlos, how it works.
You first need to declare your variable in the initialization section in the for loop statement. Then after the colon, you have your criteria. Normally you would have your criteria being ending at a specific value or a specific index if you're going to do an array. Then you're going to either increment it or decrement it, which can be done in many different ways. And then inside, after that, you have your code to be executed until the criteria is met.
Yeah, exactly. So basically in loop or in for loop, we have three statements. First is initialization. This is initialization part. This is condition part, and this is iterator part, right? So the initialization statement is executed at first and only once the variable is usually declared and initialized in this. So it's always executed at first and only once. Remember this thing, okay? Then the second is condition, which is evaluated. The condition is a Boolean expression. That means it returns either true or false, okay? It's a Boolean expression. Remember this thing, it can return either true or false. That's if a condition is going to met, that means true. If it's not, then it will come out from, this is gonna be false. Are you understanding? So if the condition is evaluated to true, the statement inside the for loop will be executed. Then the iterator statement is executed, which usually changes the value of the initialized variable. So at third, the iterator, or you can say the increment statement is executed, which changes the values of the initialized value. Initialized variable, for example, a is 1, it will keep on changing values. And again, after it's going to change the value to 2, again, the condition is evaluated, not the variable, not the initialized variable here. So again, when it keep on increase, it will just go over here. Again, the condition is executed, or you can say evaluated. If the condition is true, the process continues until the condition is evaluated as false. So this will be executed only once. Then these will be executed again and again. When it will increment it to 2, then it will check will condition 3rd, 4th, 5th, until and unless the condition will not return false. When it will become 51, a is less or equal to 51, it's not. So we can say it's false and it will not any value, because when a will add 51, here you can see a is less or equal to 51 because 50 is there, so it will change it to false and then it will come out from the loop. Are you understanding? So that's how it's going to terminate the loop. Clear?
Yeah.
So this will be executed only once. Then these two factors, these two statements will be executed again and again until the condition becomes false. When the condition becomes false, the for loop will be terminated. It will come out. Okay. That's enough for now. Take a break. I will be getting back at 5:50 to 5:55, and then we'll start more examples of for loop. Okay, so far in this session, do you have any questions?
No.
No. All right, so take a break. I will take a coffee or tea and then I'll be getting back. Okay, take care.